Security drags a well-spoken black man across the marble lobby while guests stare in shocked silence. "Please, I just need a room for the night," Matthew Johnson says calmly, his worn clothes dampened by rain, dignity intact despite rough handling. Ryan Peters, the immaculately dressed hotel manager, steps forward with a cold smile. "Our establishment maintains certain standards. Clearly," he looks Matthew up and down with disgust, "you don't meet them." "I have the money." Matthew reaches for his wallet. "Money isn't everything," Ryan snaps, signaling security to tighten their grip. "The Grandeur Hotel serves a particular clientele. People like you simply don't belong here." As Matthew is forcibly removed, a guest captures the humiliation on her phone. Outside in the downpour, Matthew makes a call. "Sarah, it's time. Start the protocol. The Grandeur Hotel requires immediate intervention. And get me everything on Ryan Peters." Who is Matthew really calling? And what intervention could a seemingly homeless man possibly initiate? Matthew Johnson stands across the street from the Grandeur Hotel, observing the constant flow of wealthy guests through its gold-trimmed revolving doors. His appearance, deliberately disheveled with worn clothes and an unkempt beard, is the culmination of weeks spent visiting competitor properties undercover, evaluating their true service standards rather than the performance they offer recognized VIPs. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, so polished they mirror the immaculate uniforms of the staff. The lobby buzzes with the gentle hum of exclusivity, soft classical music, hushed conversations, the delicate clink of fine china from the adjacent tea room. Ryan Peters watches from his glass-walled office overlooking the lobby, his expression shifting from professional alertness to visible distaste as Matthew enters. He straightens his custom suit jacket, a reflexive gesture whenever he perceives a threat to his carefully curated environment. Matthew approaches the front desk where Alicia, a young receptionist with a practiced smile, greets him. "Welcome to the Grandeur Hotel. How may I assist you today?" Her smile falters as she takes in his appearance, uncertainty flickering across her face. Ryan emerges from his office before Matthew can respond. "I'll handle this, Alicia." He positions himself between Matthew and the reception desk, standing unnaturally tall, creating physical distance. His voice rises deliberately, ensuring nearby guests can hear. "May I help you, sir?" "I'd like a room, please," Matthew says, his articulation precise and educated, creating the first cognitive dissonance in Ryan's assessment. Ryan glances at the status board clearly visible behind the desk, displaying numerous vacancies. "I'm afraid we're fully booked tonight." "Your availability display shows several open rooms," Matthew observes quietly. Ryan's smile tightens. "Those are reserved for guests with confirmed bookings. We cater to a certain caliber of clientele at the Grandeur." Matthew briefly closes his eyes, remembering his father's words. "Your dignity isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you respond when they don't." He returns to the present with composed determination. "I understand. Perhaps I could speak with someone about your accommodation policies?" Ryan's face hardens. "You're looking at management, and management says no. I suggest trying somewhere more suitable for your situation." As Matthew turns to leave, he notices several well-dressed guests being welcomed effusively by the same staff who regard him with suspicion and discomfort. Matthew pauses at a framed photograph on the wall, showing a younger version of himself at the hotel's groundbreaking ceremony, unrecognized by anyone present. Matthew returns to the hotel the following morning. He's cleaned up slightly, beard trimmed, clothes still modest but less disheveled. The strategic adjustment offers a test. Will minimal improvement in appearance change his treatment? He approaches the front desk where James, a middle-aged clerk with kind eyes, greets him with professional courtesy. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to the Grandeur." "Good morning. I'd like to inquire about room availability for tonight." James begins typing on his computer when Ryan's voice cuts through the lobby. "James, I'll take over." Ryan strides forward, recognition flashing in his eyes. I thought I made myself clear yesterday. The lobby quiets as guests pause their conversations, attention drawn to the confrontation. I'm simply looking for accommodations, Matthew explains calmly. I have money to pay. He removes his wallet, displaying sufficient cash. Ryan's posture stiffens. Sir, the grandeur has a strict dress code policy for guests. Additionally, we're hosting a private event tonight that occupies most of our common areas. A dress code that wasn't mentioned yesterday, Matthew observes. And the event wasn't mentioned when you claimed you were fully booked. An older couple nearby exchanges glances, the woman frowning at Ryan's tone. Our system is also undergoing maintenance, Ryan adds hastily. Perhaps you misunderstood my colleague. We value all potential guests, but we have procedures. James stares at his screen, discomfort evident in his rigid posture. Could I see these written policies? Matthew asks. About dress codes and guest requirements? Those are internal documents, Ryan snaps, color rising in his face. Not available to the public. A security guard, Diego, according to his nameplate, approaches cautiously, visibly uncomfortable but following Ryan's subtle hand signal. Matthew looks directly into Ryan's eyes. Is this how you treat all potential guests, or just ones who look like me? This has nothing to do with race, Ryan retorts defensively. It's about maintaining the standards our regular guests expect. From the corner of his eye, Matthew notices Alicia documenting the exchange in what appears to be an incident log, her expression troubled. The tension stretches between them before Matthew nods once. I'll return tomorrow. Perhaps with clearer communication we can resolve this misunderstanding. Don't bother, Ryan replies, a hint of victory in his voice. Management's decision is final. Matthew exits with dignity intact, aware of the eyes following him. Once in his car, he makes a call. Sarah, it's worse than we thought. Start the protocol and get me everything you can on Ryan Peters. As Matthew drives away, James watches through the window, then quietly opens his email to send a message to an address he's been holding for months. The following day, Matthew approaches the Grandeur Hotel for his third visit. He's dressed in clean, pressed khakis and a button-down shirt, modest but respectable attire that no reasonable establishment could reject on appearance alone. In his hand, he carries a folder containing printouts of the hotel's published policies and a confirmation email for a reservation made through their website overnight. The morning sun glints off the hotel's imposing facade as Matthew enters the lobby with quiet confidence. He approaches the front desk where Alicia works alone, her eyes widening slightly in recognition. Good morning, he greets her pleasantly. I have a reservation under Johnson. Alicia hesitates before typing the name into her system. Yes, Mr. Johnson, I see your reservation here. She begins the check-in process, her movements professional but tense, eyes darting toward Ryan's office. Is there a problem? Matthew asks. No, sir, she responds softly. I just need your credit card and ID. Ryan bursts from his office, face flushed with anger. What is going on here? His voice carries across the lobby, drawing attention from guests enjoying morning coffee in the adjacent lounge. This man has been repeatedly told we cannot accommodate him. A small crowd begins to gather, business travelers pausing mid-stride, curious staff members emerging from back offices, weekend tourists whispering behind raised hands. Matthew remains composed despite the growing spectacle. I made a reservation online last night. Your system accepted it, and I've received confirmation. He opens his folder, presenting the printed email. Sir, your appearance and behavior suggest you might be under the influence of substances, Ryan announces loudly, fabricating a new accusation. I must ask you to leave before we're forced to contact authorities. Several guests look uncomfortable with this escalation, exchanging glances. I've broken no laws or violated any policies, Matthew responds, his voice steady. I simply want to be treated with the same respect as any other paying customer. Ryan signals to security with a sharp gesture. Diego approaches reluctantly, conflict evident in his expression. I have documentation, Matthew insists, presenting his reservation confirmation. Ryan snatches the paper from his hand and tears it deliberately in half, then quarters. Anyone can print fake confirmations, Ryan declares. Security, please remove this person from the premises. He's disrupting our operations. From the concierge desk, James watches with evident distress, making brief eye contact with Matthew and mouthing what appears to be, "I'm sorry." Diego places a hesitant hand on Matthew's shoulder. "Sir, please don't make this harder than it needs to be." His voice is quiet, almost apologetic. Matthew allows himself to be escorted toward the exit, maintaining his dignity while guests watch. Some have phones raised, recording the incident. At the doorway, Matthew turns to face Ryan once more. "I've experienced your hospitality 3 times now. Each interaction will be detailed in my report." Ryan laughs dismissively. "Report to whoever you want. No one cares about complaints from people like you." Outside, beyond Ryan's hearing, Diego speaks quietly. "Just following orders, sir. For what it's worth, I don't agree with how you were treated in there." Matthew nods in acknowledgement as he walks away, aware of eyes watching from the lobby windows. He passes an elderly woman waiting for her car at the valet stand, who studies his face with sudden recognition. "Mr. Johnson?" she whispers. "Should I call the board about what I just witnessed?" Matthew touches her arm gently and murmurs, "Not yet, Mrs. Winters, but keep your phone ready tomorrow." The spacious downtown apartment reveals Matthew's true circumstances, a stark contrast to the disheveled character he's been portraying. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer panoramic views of the city skyline, while the open-concept living space houses an impromptu command center of laptops, documents, and digital displays. Matthew removes the fake beard he's been wearing, wincing slightly as the spirit gum pulls at his skin. He changes from his modest attire into a tailored charcoal suit that costs more than a month's salary for most of the Granger's staff. Sarah Chen, his executive assistant for 7 years, reviews footage captured by the hidden camera in Matthew's lapel pin. Her expression darkens as she watches Ryan tear up the confirmation printout. "This is worse than the report suggested," she says, pausing the video on Ryan's contemptuous expression. "We have enough for immediate termination." Matthew stands before a wall displaying the organizational structure of Johnson Hospitality Group. 28 luxury properties spanning 4 continents, with the Granger Hotel prominently featured near the top of the hierarchy. His name appears as CEO and majority shareholder. "My father started as a janitor in a motel," Matthew says quietly, touching a framed black-and-white photograph of an older black man standing proudly before a modest hotel. "He worked 18-hour days, saved every penny, bought that first struggling property, and built it into something special." Sarah nods, familiar with the story, but understanding its relevance to their current mission. "He taught me to experience our hotels as guests do," Matthew continues, "to understand the true measure of our hospitality, not the performance put on for recognized VIPs. Sarah presents a dossier on Ryan Peters, employment history, performance reviews, and a disturbing pattern of customer complaints, predominantly filed by minority guests, each marked resolved, insufficient evidence, or customer misunderstanding. The employee satisfaction surveys tell the same story, Matthew observes, studying the data. Low morale, high turnover, particularly among minority staff, all masked by strong financial performance. His phone rings. Marcus Washington, the company's chief legal counsel. Matthew activates the speaker. "We have enough for immediate termination," Marcus states, echoing Sarah's assessment. "But you want more than that, don't you?" "This isn't about one manager," Matthew confirms. "I need to understand how deep this goes, how many guests have been humiliated, how the culture allowed this." He explains his annual tradition, visiting properties undercover to experience true customer service. This year focusing specifically on allegations of discriminatory practices following concerning reports from the Granger. "Tomorrow we escalate," Matthew decides, studying Ryan's image on the screen. "I want to see how far he'll go when truly tested. Then we end this." Sarah looks concerned. "Is it worth the personal humiliation you're enduring?" Matthew turns to his father's photograph. My father built this company promising dignity for every guest who walked through our doors. Some things matter more than pride. As Matthew prepares his wardrobe for the next day's confrontation, Ryan sits in his office across town, opening an email that causes his brow to furrow deeply. Urgent. Executive Board inspection scheduled this week. Date and inspector identity confidential. All departments prepare for comprehensive review. Ryan slams his fist on the desk, then picks up the phone. Security, I need you to review footage of everyone who's entered the hotel in the past 3 days. The staff meeting room buzzes with tension as Ryan paces before his assembled team, tie loosened, forehead gleaming with perspiration despite the aggressive air conditioning. An executive inspector could be here any day, possibly already evaluating us undercover, he announces, glaring at each employee. This property must be flawless. Understand? Flawless. The morning staff shift, front desk, concierge, housekeeping supervisors, exchange uncertain glances. Diego, Ryan addresses the security lead directly. Keep undesirables away from the property this week. I don't care how. We can't afford any distractions during inspection. Undesirables, sir? Diego questions. You know exactly who I mean, Ryan snaps. Anyone who doesn't fit the grandeur's image. James clears his throat. If they're paying customers, I decide who's a customer and who's a problem, Ryan interrupts sharply. Questions? Silence falls as Ryan dismisses them with a curt nod. 2 hours later, Matthew enters the hotel lobby wearing business casual attire. Quality chinos, a tailored button-down shirt, and subtle designer watch. While still unrecognizable to those who don't know him personally, he presents as an obvious business professional. He approaches the restaurant hostess inside the hotel. Table for 2, please. I'm meeting a client to discuss a potential conference booking. The hostess smiles warmly. Of course, sir. Would you prefer the main dining room or the terrace? The main dining... Excuse me. Ryan's voice cuts through their conversation as he materializes beside them. I believe this gentleman was just leaving. The hostess blinks in confusion. Sir? This individual has been removed from our property twice already, Ryan announces, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. He's misrepresenting himself to access our facilities. Matthew calmly retrieves a business card from his wallet for Johnson Consulting Group, a legitimate subsidiary he uses for property evaluations. I assure you, I'm here on business. Ryan barely glances at the card. Anyone can print fake credentials. A nearby couple abandons their wait for a table, the woman muttering, disgraceful, as they exit. Alicia approaches from reception, attempting to defuse the situation. Mr. Peters, perhaps... Know your place, Ryan hisses, causing her to step back. Matthew maintains his composure, activating the recording device in his jacket pocket with a subtle movement. Your executive board might be interested in how you treat potential business clients. Ryan freezes, sudden uncertainty crossing his face. Are you here for the inspection? I'm evaluating the property's operations, Matthew replies carefully. You're giving me plenty to report. Ryan's demeanor shifts from aggressive certainty to nervous hostility, caught between suspicion and fear of consequences. Security will escort you out. Again. As Matthew allows himself to be led toward the exit, he passes James at the concierge desk, who whispers urgently, Some of us have documented everything. If you're who I think you are, check your email tonight. Ryan watches them from across the lobby, a cold realization dawning that he might have made a catastrophic miscalculation. Ryan hunches over his computer, scrolling frantically through the upcoming reservations. Each name becomes a potential threat, every booking a possible undercover inspector. The executive board's email has transformed routine guests into phantoms of professional ruin. The lobby phone rings. Mr. Peters, there's a journalist and her consultant here regarding a hospitality industry article. Ryan's hand tightens around the receiver. Matthew enters with Sarah beside him, both dressed in sharp business attire. Sarah carries a professional camera and notebook, the perfect image of a journalist researching an industry piece. Mr. Peters? She extends her hand. Sarah Chen, Hospitality Quarterly. We're researching industry leadership approaches to diversity and accommodation policies. Your hotel was highly recommended. Ryan's eyes narrow, studying Matthew with renewed suspicion, but the mention of a potential positive article shifts his demeanor. The grandeur prides itself on excellent service for all our distinguished guests. Wonderful, Sarah smiles. Perhaps a brief tour while we discuss your approach? Ryan leads them through the hotel's luxury amenities, the award-winning restaurant, spa facilities, presidential suite, his narrative punctuated with subtle yet revealing comments. We maintain certain standards to ensure our regular clientele feels comfortable, he explains as they pass the exclusive executive lounge. Not everyone understands the environment we've cultivated. How do you determine which guests meet your standards? Sarah asks innocently, pen poised. Ryan offers a practiced smile. We have a rigorous verification process for reservations. Some demographics simply prefer different types of accommodations. And if someone lodges a complaint about rejection? Matthew inquires. All complaints are thoroughly investigated, Ryan insists, the same phrase he used in the staff manual Matthew reviewed earlier. Customer satisfaction is our priority for appropriate guests. We'd love to speak with some staff members, Sarah suggests. Get a sense of the team culture. I'm happy to arrange that, with my participation, of course. Ryan's tone leaves no room for negotiation. My team performs best with proper supervision. During a moment when Ryan steps away to address a staff question, James approaches Matthew quickly. There's a group of us documenting everything. It's been happening for years. Ryan returns, catching this exchange. His expression hardens. Unfortunately, we need to conclude our tour. An urgent matter requires my attention. As they reach the lobby, Matthew hands Ryan his business card. Matthew Johnson, hospitality consultant. Thank you for your time. Ryan glances at the card dismissively. Your article won't matter. We have protocols for handling negative press. Sarah adjusts her glasses. I'm sure your executive board would be interested in those protocols, Mr. Peters. They exit, leaving Ryan staring at the business card with growing unease. Once alone in his office, he frantically searches Matthew Johnson online, his face draining of color as the first results appear. Johnson Hospitality Group CEO makes surprise inspections, reads the headline beneath a photo Ryan failed to recognize. Ryan's office resembles a war room as he frantically researches Matthew Johnson online. Despite his prominence in the hospitality industry, Matthew maintains a deliberately low profile. Few photographs, minimal social media presence, rare public appearances. Find everything on this Matthew Johnson, Ryan instructs his assistant managers during an emergency meeting. And purge our systems of any problematic communications. Now. Across town, Matthew receives an encrypted file from hotel employees, years of documented discrimination incidents meticulously compiled by staff who feared reporting through official channels. The evidence is damning. Ryan's targeted harassment, manipulated complaint records, intimidation of employees who objected. This goes beyond anything we anticipated, Marcus says, reviewing the documents with Matthew and Sarah. We have grounds for criminal charges beyond termination. Matthew studies the testimonials. Dozens of guests humiliated, staff threatened with termination for speaking up, a systematic erasure of evidence. Prepare the final confrontation strategy. Tomorrow we end this. At the grandeur, Ryan assembles key staff members. If anyone asks about our guest policies, stick to the script. We maintain standards, nothing discriminatory about upholding quality. Alicia and James exchange knowing glances as Ryan continues his desperate coaching. The next morning, Matthew arrives at the Grandeur Hotel, transformed. Gone is any trace of his undercover persona, replaced by the true Matthew Johnson, impeccably dressed in a bespoke suit that exudes quiet power and authority. Sarah and Marcus flank him, equally polished and professional. The lobby falls silent as they enter, Ryan's head snapping up from the reception desk where he's been reviewing procedures with staff. He approaches with a forced smile plastered across his face. Mr. Johnson, what an unexpected pleasure. Had I known you were a consultant of your caliber— You knew nothing about my caliber when you decided I didn't belong here, Matthew interrupts calmly. That was precisely the point. Ryan freezes, recognition and horror dawning simultaneously. There's been a misunderstanding. Our policies— I've experienced your policies firsthand, 3 times now, Matthew states. No misunderstanding whatsoever. Staff members pause their duties to watch. Guests linger over coffee, sensing the dramatic confrontation unfolding. Alicia and James exchange a significant look as tension builds in the marble-floored lobby. Whatever complaint you have, Ryan attempts, lowering his voice, I'm sure we can resolve this privately. Matthew's expression remains impassive. Privacy benefits those who abuse power. Transparency protects those without it. Ryan's eyes dart frantically between Matthew and the growing audience. Security staff hover uncertainly, no longer sure whose authority to follow. As the confrontation reaches its peak, the executive entrance doors swing open. The hotel's full board of directors enters the lobby in solemn procession, led by the chairwoman Eleanor Richards, their faces grave with purpose. Ryan's last hope evaporates as he realizes the emergency board meeting he wasn't informed about clearly has him as its sole agenda item. The board members file into the lobby in perfect business attire, their collective presence commanding immediate attention. Eleanor Richards, the 70-year-old chairwoman with steel gray hair and unflinching eyes, leads the procession. They move with synchronized purpose, like a jury arriving to deliver a long-deliberated verdict. Matthew greets each member respectfully, exchanging brief nods that speak of long professional relationships. Ryan stands paralyzed, confusion evident as he struggles to comprehend this unexpected development. A full board appearing without his knowledge, greeting the man he's repeatedly ejected as a peer. What's happening? Ryan manages, his voice barely audible. Matthew turns to address him directly, his posture straightening almost imperceptibly. Allow me to introduce myself properly. Matthew Johnson, CEO and majority shareholder of Johnson Hospitality Group. The revelation lands like a physical blow. The color drains from Ryan's face as realization cascades through him. He's been discriminating against his own boss. Staff members gasp audibly, guests whisper behind raised hands. That's impossible, Ryan stammers. The CEO wouldn't— Wouldn't what, Mr. Peters? Matthew asks calmly. Wouldn't experience our hotels as our guests do? Wouldn't verify that our company values are maintained at every level? Wouldn't ensure that every person who walks through our doors is treated with dignity, regardless of appearance? Matthew turns to address the gathered staff and curious guests, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hushed lobby. For 20 years, I've visited every property we own annually, experiencing our hotels exactly as guests do, without privilege or recognition. He moves toward the center of the lobby, commanding the space naturally. This tradition began with my father, who built this company from nothing. He understood a fundamental truth. A hotel that doesn't welcome everyone with dignity welcomes no one properly. Eleanor Richards steps forward, her expression severe. The board has reviewed the preliminary documentation of your experiences, Mr. Johnson. We've received isolated complaints before, but never understood the systematic nature until now. Ryan attempts to interject. Mrs. Richards, please, you can't possibly— Display the evidence, please, Matthew instructs calmly. Sarah activates her tablet, connecting wirelessly to the lobby's digital displays normally used for promotional content. The screens come alive with selected video clips from Matthew's hidden camera, Ryan's dismissive treatment, the torn reservation, the public humiliation. Gasps and murmurs ripple through the gathered spectators. A guest at the coffee shop lowers her cup, staring in disbelief. These incidents are taken out of context, Ryan protests desperately. You don't understand the pressures of maintaining standards. The context is perfectly clear, Matthew interrupts. You judged me based on appearance, not character. You decided who deserves dignity based on perceived status. He gestures to Marcus, who opens a leather portfolio. Our investigation reveals a disturbing pattern. Discriminatory treatment systematically applied, complaint records manipulated, a hostile work environment cultivated through intimidation. Ryan's desperation manifests as righteous indignation. I was maintaining standards, protecting our luxury brand. That's my job. The standard, Matthew replies evenly, is equal dignity for all. That's the brand my father built and what I'll always protect. Ryan notices Diego now standing at attention near Matthew, security staff clearly recognizing the shift in authority. The power has completely transferred, leaving Ryan isolated on the marble floor he once patrolled like personal territory. You're suspended pending full investigation, Matthew states formally. Please surrender your access credentials to Ms. Richards. Ryan clutches his key card and phone protectively. You can't do this. I'll go public. I'll expose how this company operates. A hint of a smile touches Matthew's lips. We operate with transparency and accountability, Mr. Peters. Starting now. Diego steps forward. Sir, I need to escort you to clear out your personal belongings. Ryan looks frantically around the lobby, seeking any ally, finding none. Staff members he's bullied for years avert their eyes or stare back with undisguised satisfaction. The guests he claimed to protect watch the spectacle with varying degrees of disgust and fascination. This isn't over, Ryan hisses as Diego leads him toward the management offices. Matthew watches him go, then turns to address the remaining staff who stand in shocked silence. I understand many of you witnessed or experienced troubling behavior but felt powerless to address it. That changes today. He surveys their faces, some relieved, others anxious, all attentive. This isn't the end of a problem. It's the beginning of a necessary transformation. Tomorrow begins the real work of healing what's broken here. Alicia steps forward hesitantly. Will there be consequences for those of us who didn't speak up? Matthew's expression softens slightly. There's a difference between those who create hostile environments and those who survive within them. We'll address both with appropriate perspective. The board members move toward the conference room as staff gradually return to their duties, the lobby humming with urgent whispers and speculation about what comes next. As Ryan clears out his office under supervision, he downloads certain files to a private device, already formulating his strategy for revenge. The executive conference room transforms into command central for crisis management. Sleek leather chairs surround the mahogany table where board members sit with expressions ranging from shocked to grimly vindicated. Digital displays show data points, complaint statistics, and legal risk assessments in stark, unforgiving detail. Matthew stands at the head of the table, jacket removed, sleeves rolled up, physically embodying the transition from observation to action. This investigation began after a pattern emerged across 3 properties, all previously managed by Ryan Peters. Sarah advances the presentation slides, revealing charts documenting complaint rates by guest demographics. The disparity is unmistakable. Minority guests experiencing rejection rates 8 times higher than white guests under Ryan's management. We initially attributed this to statistical anomalies or isolated incidents, Eleanor Richards admits, removing her glasses wearily. Each complaint seemed plausibly explained when viewed individually. Marcus Washington, the legal counsel, straightens his tie before delivering his assessment. We're facing multiple exposure points. Discrimination lawsuits from affected guests, wrongful termination claims from staff pressured to leave, potential regulatory investigation, and significant reputation damage. The HR director, Patricia Okafor, speaks up. Ryan documented everything meticulously, but framed it as quality control. Every rejection had an explanation: dress code violations, reservation system errors, capacity issues. But the pattern is undeniable when viewed comprehensively. How did we miss this? Asks board member Harold Chen, frustration evident in his voice. Because Ryan was delivering exceptional financial results, Matthew answers honestly. and we prioritized metrics over experiences. That ends today. He activates the room's presentation system, displaying a comprehensive action plan. Independent review of all guest rejection incidents over past 5 years. Amnesty program for staff to come forward with information. Creation of restitution fund for affected guests. Complete overhaul of complaint investigation procedures. Mandatory bias training for all employees. Installation of new management team with diversity focus. This will impact our quarterly earnings, the CFO notes, already calculating potential costs. Some things matter more than quarterly earnings, Matthew responds, his tone brooking no argument. We built this company on dignity and respect. We lost our way. Now we make it right, whatever it costs. Sarah presents the next segment, testimonials from past guests who experienced discrimination. Their words appear on screen, each account more damaging than the last. I made a reservation online, but when I arrived, they claimed it didn't exist. I watched them welcome other guests without reservations. The manager suggested I would be more comfortable at another hotel after seeing my hijab. They made my family wait 3 hours for our confirmed room while offering immediate accommodations to others who arrived after us. The human impact transcends legal concerns, hanging heavy in the air of the climate-controlled room. James and 3 other staff members enter, having been summoned to provide testimony. They describe the toxic culture Ryan cultivated: fear of retaliation, pressure to profile certain guests, manipulation of records to erase evidence. He told us to watch for certain types trying to access amenities, James explains. Said our job was to maintain the environment our proper guests expect. Alicia adds, if we objected, he'd schedule us for undesirable shifts or reduce our hours until we complied or quit. The corporate communications director, Lisa Brennan, outlines their response strategy. We recommend complete transparency, acknowledge failures, detail corrective actions, commit to systemic reform. No cover-up, no minimizing. The Johnson standard, Matthew affirms, invoking his father's principle. We own our mistakes and fix them properly, not just cosmetically. The board votes unanimously to approve the comprehensive reform plan, despite projected short-term financial impact. The decision feels less like corporate strategy and more like moral reckoning. While the board continues their session, Ryan clears out his office under Diego's watchful supervision. His movements grow increasingly frantic as he attempts to access systems only to find his permissions revoked. He reaches for a folder of physical documents in his credenza. Those stay here, Diego states firmly. Company property. These are my personal records, Ryan protests. All records relating to hotel operations remain, Diego responds, following instructions received directly from legal. Ryan's phone buzzes with a text from his attorney, an expensive partner at a firm known for aggressive defense tactics. His final desperate gambit materializes. Tell Johnson I want to talk, Ryan demands. I have information his precious board doesn't know about. The message is relayed, interrupting the board proceedings. Matthew listens, then shakes his head. No negotiations. Standard severance as per his contract, nothing more. Ryan's response comes quickly. I'll go to the media with what I know unless I get a proper settlement package. Matthew's expression doesn't change as he responds. He doesn't realize we've already contacted media ourselves. Transparency means owning our failures. As the day's emergency session concludes, Matthew makes a point of personally addressing the hotel staff assembled in the employee break room. The space is crowded, tense with uncertainty about what the day's revelations mean for their futures. I want to apologize to each of you, Matthew begins, surprising them. Leadership's responsibility isn't just to prevent toxic environments, but to create conditions where they can't take root. We failed you by allowing someone like Ryan Peters to flourish in our organization. Alicia steps forward, tears welling in her eyes. I knew it was wrong, turning people away based on how they looked. But I needed this job, my mother's medical bills. Her voice breaks. "You're not responsible for the impossible choices you were forced to make," Matthew assures her, addressing everyone present. "The measure of this company isn't that we failed, but how we respond to that failure." He outlines the immediate changes: new management structure, revised policies, resources for staff who experienced harassment, commitment to reformed culture. The tension in the room gradually transforms into cautious hope. As Matthew concludes the staff meeting, his phone vibrates with an urgent message from Marcus. Peters has retained Sheldon Barrett, the attorney who specializes in attacking corporate reputations during discrimination cases. He's planning to position himself as a whistleblower exposing industry-wide practices. Matthew stares at the message, realizing this has escalated from correcting internal failure to defending the company's very survival against a dangerous counter-narrative. The Employment Tribunal hearing room exudes bureaucratic austerity, fluorescent lighting, veneer tables, the soft hum of inadequate air conditioning. The three-person panel reviews documents with practiced neutrality while reporters fill the public seating area, drawn by the high-profile nature of the proceedings. Ryan sits beside Sheldon Barrett, his attorney's expensive suit and predatory posture contrasting sharply with Ryan's diminished presence. Gone is the imperious hotel manager. In his place sits a man strategically presenting himself as the victim, shirt slightly too large, expression carefully cultivated to suggest persecution. "My client has been scapegoated," Barrett opens dramatically, "blamed for implementing policies that originated at corporate level. One manager sacrificed to protect a company-wide culture of discrimination." Matthew watches from the respondent's table, face impassive. The company's attorney presents Johnson Hospitality Group's case methodically. Timeline of incidents, documentation of Ryan's autonomous decision-making, evidence of corporate policies that Ryan systematically violated. When Matthew takes the stand, he speaks with measured clarity about his undercover visits, the consistent pattern of discrimination he experienced, and the broader investigation findings. "This wasn't about enforcing company standards," Matthew testifies. "This was about Mr. Peters creating his own standards based on personal prejudice, then systematically concealing evidence of that prejudice from oversight." Ryan's attorney attempts to reframe the narrative during cross-examination. "Isn't it true that luxury hotels throughout your organization maintain appearance standards? That Mr. Peters was simply protecting the brand image you yourself established?" "Our standards concern behavior, not appearance or background," Matthew responds. "Mr. Peters rejected guests who could afford our accommodations and behaved appropriately. The only standard he applied consistently was his own bias." The tribunal's questioning intensifies when Alicia takes the stand, submitting printed directives from Ryan, instructing staff to flag reservations from certain zip codes and non-traditional names for additional scrutiny. "He said these were potential fraud indicators," Alicia testifies, her voice gaining strength as she speaks. "But we all understood what he really meant." Ryan shifts uncomfortably as his defense strategy unravels. The existence of these written directives directly contradicts his earlier testimony that no such instructions existed. Diego describes being ordered to remove guests who matched certain descriptions despite having legitimate reservations. He called it maintaining the atmosphere, but it was profiling, plain and simple. The turning point comes during Ryan's own testimony. Under pressure from persistent questioning, his carefully constructed facade cracks. "Some people just don't belong in luxury establishments," he snaps, frustration overwhelming his coached responses. "That's the reality of the business. Every manager knows it, even if no one admits it publicly." A murmur ripples through the hearing room. The tribunal chair raises an eyebrow at this unexpected admission. Barrett attempts damage control, but the momentum has irrevocably shifted. The final blow comes from surprise witnesses, former employees from Ryan's previous hotels who describe identical patterns of discrimination predating his position at the grandeur. Matthew presents a comprehensive financial analysis showing properties under Ryan's management had the highest complaint rates and lowest repeat business from minority guests despite strong overall revenue. "The data reveals the true cost of discrimination," Matthew explains. "Not just the human cost, which is immeasurable, but the quantifiable business cost of turning away legitimate customers and creating hostile environments. Barrett makes a last-ditch argument, portraying Matthew's investigation as entrapment. Mr. Johnson deliberately misrepresented himself to provoke negative responses. The tribunal chair dismisses this reasoning with a wave of her hand. Experiencing your own business as customers do is not entrapment, counselor. It's responsible leadership. The verdict is unanimous. Ryan's termination deemed entirely justified based on documented misconduct. His counterclaims for wrongful termination and whistleblower protection rejected completely. As Ryan exits the hearing room, reporters thrust microphones toward him, cameras flashing in the hallway. "This isn't over," he declares, desperation evident beneath his bravado. "This company has systematically discriminated for years. I was following established practices." Matthew steps forward, drawing the media attention. Mr. Peters is right about one thing. The discrimination was systematic. That's precisely why we're changing the entire system, beginning with removing those who perpetuated it. Ryan watches as reporters turn away from him, his moment of vindication evaporating as quickly as his professional reputation. As Ryan retreats in defeat, Matthew's phone rings with a call from the National Hospitality Association. "We need to talk about implementing your reforms across all member hotels." 6 months later, Matthew stands at the podium of the International Hospitality Conference, the industry's premier annual gathering. The grand ballroom of the Vanguard Hotel teems with executives, managers, and industry leaders from across the globe. Where once Matthew might have encountered skepticism, today he faces a room leaning forward in collective attention. "Transformation begins with honest acknowledgement of failure," Matthew opens, his voice carrying to every corner without aggression. 6 months ago, Johnson Hospitality Group discovered that one of our premier properties had become a site of systematic discrimination, not through official policy, but through tolerated practice. Digital displays behind him show before and after metrics from the Grandeur Hotel, complaint statistics, guest demographic data, employee satisfaction scores, retention rates. The positive trends are unmistakable. "We implemented comprehensive reforms across all 28 of our properties," Matthew continues, detailing the initiatives now in place. An anonymous testing program deploying evaluators from diverse backgrounds to experience service delivery across all properties. Overhauled training protocols focusing on unconscious bias recognition and inclusive hospitality practices. Reformed complaint systems with independent third-party review to prevent internal suppression of concerns. Industry-first demographic data tracking to identify potential service disparities before they become patterns. The results speak for themselves, Matthew notes, highlighting increased guest satisfaction across all demographics, strengthened repeat business metrics, and dramatically improved employee retention. Inclusion isn't just morally right, it's profitable. James, now general manager of the Grandeur, joins Matthew on stage alongside Alicia, who heads the hotel's new guest relations department. Their presence embodies the transformation from toxic hierarchy to empowered leadership. "The changes weren't cosmetic," James explains to the audience. "We rebuilt our culture from the foundation, creating systems where discrimination becomes immediately visible rather than systematically hidden." Industry veterans in the audience shift uncomfortably as the presentation continues, perhaps recognizing similar issues in their own operations. A panel discussion follows, initially marked by defensive questioning. "These problems may have been specific to your organization," suggests the CEO of a competing luxury chain. "Most properties already have adequate safeguards." "We believed the same," Matthew responds evenly, "until we looked closely at the data and listened to those who experienced our hospitality differently than we intended. I encourage you to conduct your own anonymous evaluations. You might be surprised by what you discover." The skepticism gradually gives way to engagement, as Matthew presents the financial benefits alongside the ethical imperative. Even the most profit-focused executives cannot ignore the improved performance metrics. Exclusion isn't just morally wrong, it's bad business, Matthew emphasizes. Every person turned away represents lost revenue, damaged reputation, and potential liability. The hospitality industry cannot claim to be service-oriented while serving only certain segments of society. As the session concludes, Matthew announces 2 new initiatives: a scholarship program for hospitality students from underrepresented communities, named after his father, and an industry-wide accountability pledge with independent certification process. Change is difficult, Matthew acknowledges, but necessary evolution always is. The conference attendees rise in standing ovation, though Matthew notices several executives slipping out quietly, perhaps to begin examining their own operations with newfound concern. As Matthew gathers his materials following the presentation, he glances toward the back row of the ballroom, where a solitary figure has remained seated throughout the applause. Ryan Peters sits with notepad in hand, meticulously documenting the presentation points, his expression unreadable. What could his former manager be planning, and why has he appeared at the moment of Matthew's greatest industry influence? 1 year to the day after Matthew's fateful first visit to the Grandeur Hotel, he approaches the familiar revolving doors as a regular guest. His appearance is neither disheveled nor ostentatiously formal, simply a well-dressed professional arriving without announcement or fanfare. The lobby exudes the same luxury as before, marble floors gleaming beneath crystal chandeliers, but the atmosphere has transformed. Staff members interact with guests naturally, without the strained performance of prescribed hospitality. A diverse clientele moves through the space, all receiving the same attentive service. James spots Matthew from across the lobby and approaches with genuine warmth rather than deference. "Hard to believe how much has changed in a year," he says, extending his hand. "The physical space remains the same," Matthew observes, "but the energy is completely different." James leads him on a tour of the transformed hotel. The physical changes are subtle but meaningful. New training facilities with inclusion-focused materials, community engagement displays in staff areas, visible diversity in leadership positions documented in updated organizational charts. "Our guest satisfaction scores are the highest in the company now," James notes with quiet pride. "Turns out treating everyone with equal dignity creates an atmosphere everyone enjoys." As they pass the hotel restaurant, Matthew pauses unexpectedly. Ryan Peters sits alone at a corner table, nursing a coffee while reviewing documents. Their eyes meet across the space, a moment of silent recognition. "He comes in occasionally," James explains, tension evident in his voice. "Says he's studying our new approaches." "I'd like a word with him," Matthew decides. The conversation between former adversaries unfolds with cautious civility. Ryan's designer suit has been replaced by more modest attire, his bearing less imperial but retaining a certain intensity. "I didn't expect to see you here," Matthew acknowledges, taking the seat across from Ryan. "Studying the competition," Ryan responds, gesturing to his notes. "I'm consulting now, helping hotels identify and address discriminatory practices." Matthew's eyebrow raises slightly. Quite a transformation. "Losing everything provides clarity," Ryan admits without self-pity. "I spent months angry, blaming you. Then I realized what I'd been doing to people for years." He pauses. "I'll never fully make amends, but I'm trying to prevent others from making my mistakes." "Transformation requires acknowledging harm caused," Matthew observes. "I've done that," Ryan states simply, "whether you believe it or not." The conversation concludes without definitive resolution. Matthew neither fully forgives nor condemns Ryan's efforts. Some journeys of redemption must unfold without external validation. Later that afternoon, Matthew meets with former guests who experienced discrimination at the Grandeur, now serving on the hotel's customer advisory board. Their insights have shaped new service protocols and complaint procedures, transforming painful experiences into structural improvements. As twilight falls, Matthew finds himself alone in the lobby, observing the natural flow of guests and staff. He thinks of his father, The immigrant who faced discrimination at hotels before building his own inclusive empire, who taught him that true hospitality sees no external differences, only human dignity. Alicia approaches, now carrying herself with the confidence of leadership. "We had a full booking today," she reports. "Every kind of guest you can imagine. Everyone treated like they belonged." "That's the only luxury that matters," Matthew responds. The statement hangs in the air between them, simple, yet profound. The true measure of hospitality isn't found in thread counts or premium amenities, but in the universal application of dignity and respect. A year of intensive reform has transformed one hotel's culture, with ripple effects spreading throughout an industry long overdue for reflection. Matthew watches a family check in, parents weary from travel, children wide-eyed at the grandeur, and sees in the staff's genuine welcome the fulfillment of his father's vision, a place where everyone belongs. If you were Matthew, would you have fired everyone or given some staff a second chance? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more powerful stories of justice like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Beat Stories family. Don't forget to smash that like button if you believe in standing up against discrimination.